All right, well, what we're going to talk about is pitching. Video production from idea to video production. I will tell you, I am not the video expert. I put together a lot of pitches, and how do you do that? From the 30-second elevator pitch to get somebody's attention, to how you market yourself online, to how you present yourself. So hopefully I do a good job. The fun thing is I wasn't going to do this deck. Somebody else was, and he was sick. So because of that, I'm up here. So as an entrepreneur, adapt and overcome. There's always times to pivot, and that's what we're doing right now. So one of the things, but I do know the guy that put this together, make a bold statement. And there's going to be some things later on in this PowerPoint that you will you'll agree with the bold statement. So make a bold statement about what you do and see it from a different light. Recently, or this weekend, I was down in Little Rock. Anybody ever thought about why Little Rock's called Little Rock and not Tiny Pebble? No, why? Well, on the north side of the Arkansas River, there is a 200-foot tall rock, about 1,000 foot long, and the Indians called it Big Rock. And there happened to be a very smaller outcropping on the other side called Little Rock, and so that's how Little Rock got its name, not called Tiny Pebble. Maybe that's a different way of marketing Little Rock. Why are we not called Tiny Pebble? Who knows? But there's always interesting ways to look at your different idea. Hit them where it feels, okay? So we recently had a gentleman that came out and pitched on this particular stage. Clara Bio, Jim West, very highly intelligent, very smart person, probably smarter than, he's forgot more than I've ever learned. And he got up here, and there was a gentleman that said it was about identifying cancer markers. The interesting part was nobody really got what the guy did, what Jim did, till we got to the Q&A. And the question was, he started off, this is a dumb question. And he said, hey, I lost one of my relatives to cancer, and we would love to have this product to identify that. And I got up, I was asking the question, I was moderating, and I just said, hey, that's the best dumb question I ever heard. I will tell you, I did not give the guy the benefit of the story, but basically there were quite a few people in tears after his story. And Jim got off the stage, and I said, Jim, you've got to relate. He goes, that's not what I do. I go, but that's on your roadmap. I go, people understood what you were doing after that question was asked. Put that in your story. Recently, there was a Pitch Perfect where I think $15,000 was given away for doing 5-minute pitches about a month ago. And Jim won $7,000 that evening because he related to people. So make sure you hit them where you feel, where they feel. Relate to your crowd. So hopefully I'm doing that. Visual analogy. All right, so talking, but at the end of the day, the visual. People think of a billboard that you drive by. So I will tell you what's wrong with this slide. Way too many words. Anybody reading all of that stuff? Well, probably 3 bullet points. Visual aid. Then I would say there's probably only should be about 3 points right here. Should be like a billboard that you drive by at 80 miles an hour. If you can't read it at 80 miles an hour, nobody read anything. You might as well not paid the money.
I'm not driving.
You should be. You seem to be going that fast all the time. So I just heard her pitch earlier. So yeah, I don't have, see, she has her kids pointing at all her new products and everything. Maybe I'm going to start, I probably started, my daughters are 14 and 16. I started a little late here. She started a lot younger. So, all right. So see, I make a bold statement. I don't know what those asterisks stands for, but at the end of the day, say something that matters, okay? The other thing, and I like what you guys are doing, do find a niche that you can go after. Understand that you can probably sell it to a lot of different markets, but go win and start making money. At the end of the day, people talk about going and raising money, and that's a big day. Actually, the biggest day in a company's life is the day you go cash flow positive. That's probably the biggest day. That's the biggest day that should be celebrated. And nobody ever does that because it's some accountant sitting in the back room telling you when you went cash flow positive. You've been making revenue for a long time, but now you're not burning money as fast as you were, or you're making more money than you're burning. So the other thing is, I'm not sure what the asterisks are down here, but don't boil the ocean. So what that means is don't try to solve too much. You're not going to boil the ocean. You're not going to solve the world's problems. Amazon started selling books, used books. Now look at where they're at. And actually now AWS makes, what it was about 8 years ago, started making more books making more money than just selling objects. Everybody thinks of Amazon as selling products. But at the end of the day, doing AWS, the Amazon Web Services, and selling compute and storage power actually makes them more money, and that started about 8 years ago. So there was another good quote from Steve Jobs at Stanford that, what was it? Stay hungry and stay foolish. So that kind of flows into do something that matters. Stay hungry and stay foolish. Kind of goes back to the tiny pebble quote. I mean, always, where are you going? Tiny pebble. What's this one? Oh, questions. Actually, the questions, see, I got to look at it. It should be like 3 bullet points. I could see it out of the side of my eyes. So I'm going to beat up on him about how he makes these slide decks. But at the end of the day, the questions should lead your client. This engages your client. If you're talking to somebody and you're not asking them, making them think in the first probably 10, 15 seconds you're talking to them, the conversation is not going to go very, very far. So you've got to do that with your product. Infographics, especially if you've got you guys got a simple product to show. It's not, and you did a really good job of having the sleeve up there so people physically can see some, even though you haven't built anything. Still right there, hey, way to be adapt and overcome. The next thing, but if you do have a very complex problem, a project, you do have to do an infographic. People understand infographics. And why there's not an infographic here? Well, I have to ask him. All right, create interesting transitions. So this one goes right into none of my knowledge. Here, we'll talk about this, is know your skill set, okay? Creating videos is not my skill set. Chad, right back up here. Ashley, that's about to come up, that's their skill set. I hire people like that know when to hire and when not to hire. So one thing is I always talk about that accountants. Nobody likes paying accountants and nobody likes paying attorneys. Pay your attorney early because it'll save you a ton of money, and hire a good accountant, especially if you're raising money, because somehow investors speak a different language than every entrepreneur out there. And you have to have somebody that can translate for you. And if you're not that person that can create the spreadsheet, and nor should you be. If you're typically, most accountants aren't entrepreneurs. They're the guy in the back. Sometimes there are entrepreneur accountants, so don't let me take that away. But at the end of the day, you've got to some way translate how that great product that somebody gets, you got to get it as the investor. But at the end of the day, the first question out of every investor's mouth is, when do I get my money back? So you as an entrepreneur will tell them all sorts of great stories, and none of that will matter. The spreadsheet will matter. Hire a good accountant that creates a great spreadsheet. On one of my companies, I had 57 tabs on a spreadsheet. I have no idea why there were 57 tabs, but we also raised a lot of money. All right, illustrations. Draw the eye. Again, we all driven by a billboard that nobody read, nobody saw, because there was too much stuff on it. Make it interesting, draw your eye to the middle. I'll take this one right here, velocity events. Simple, gets to the point. All right, repetition. All right, I could say repetition again, but I won't. All right, call to actions. Here's probably the biggest thing that people do, they don't do. They give no call to action. How many times have we been on a website, clicked on something, and Wanted to know why it didn't go anywhere. We looked at something and couldn't figure out how to buy it. There is no call to action. There was no chat on their website. There was no way to contact or make it easy on the people that do want to buy your product. Give them a call to action. How am I doing on time? Ashley? All right. I can speed up. All right. I can slow down. Always leave the understanding. Well, because here's the last slide anyway. So whether I slow down or speed up doesn't really matter. Here's the last slide. Always leave them understanding. Not really sure what I'm understanding, other than the 5 Ps. Okay, and you guys did the good job. So you got good training, or you just knew. Talked about the people. You made people identify who you are. The problem. What was the problem? You identified the problem. The product. The plan. All right. I can't read when there's something right over the top of it. Pricing. Okay, at the end of the day, too, there's always a debate about pricing. But at the end of the day, everybody wants to know about price. So when you give somebody a proposal, what do? They flip right open to the last page and look at the price. Then they listen. So there's always a game plan about how to do that. But at the end of the day, you do have to talk about who you are, the problem, the product, how you solve the problem, and then what's the market. What's the market and how you differentiate yourself from the other things in the market. They looked at the market and they said there was nothing out there. Now the crazy thing is sometimes that does happen. A lot of times it does not happen. So there's always a competitor, or somebody thinks they're a competitor. Just point that out, and that way, and I think they did. And again, I'm a little shocked that they don't have something, that there's not anything out on the market like that. So so one thing that I task you guys with is task your mentors there at Innovate8 about, and we talked a little bit about this, about how do you go raise money? Do they have a fund? And who owns the IP? And who does that? So we turn the challenge back on to your mentors, your teachers, of how do you take a product that you guys came up with, and how do they enable you, as any good mentor or facilitator would do, to make them go. So we have some resources here at Velocity that hopefully we can help you guys out. But we do, again, I guess our call to action is contact John or Matt, okay? So our call to action is, and I'm gonna have a slide up here in just a second that has my contact information, or at least Christian's, around the marketing. So one last thing, just demonstrate informative, inspirational, and persuasive. Not really sure what I'm supposed to say after that other than be persuasive. All right. Here's Hidden Street Marketing team. No picture of Christian, except his contact information. So he put this slide together. He does actually, so real quick, he helps a lot of our companies around digital marketing and specifically around metrics. At the end of the day, measure what you're doing. If you can't measure what you're doing, probably not worth doing. I run into a lot of marketing companies. They create a great banner like that. How does that make money? I don't know. Christian actually does SEO, does retargeting, and can show you how your money turns your money into product sales. That's it. No more. Any questions? I either stunned you or just did a wonderful job. I'll take the second, is that I did a wonderful job. Oh, okay, John, the old guy that needs a compression sleeve. Yes, sir.
Let's say a pitch to raise capital. Okay, you want to raise money. What's the normal length of time, or a good length of time, and what would be 4 or 5 things you're trying to accomplish?
So what the quote about Walt Disney, that he went to 57 people, got 57 no's, and on the 58th he got a yes. And it was not nearly as much money as he thought he wanted to. Investors are a strange breed. They think they know what they're doing, but there's an old quote that says those that have the money make the rules. So, since so understand that the investor that you're pitching to, the group that you're pitching to, typically has to get it. Any angel group, any VC, private equity firm, they have a due diligence group. And we were talking about Shark Tank earlier, about how it takes 2.5 hours to make one of their segments. And typically those deals aren't actually what they say they do on TV, isn't the final deal. But the due diligence they do afterwards is what makes or breaks the deal. There's smart money and there's dumb money. When you take money, I'll tell you, I took 7 figures, and it cost me a company. It cost me a 1.5 years worth of time because I took dumb money, and it's $1 million. So 7 figures, and it went quick. You wouldn't believe how fast 7 figures goes when you're starting a company, because you've got other people to pay, products, services out there. But at the end of the day, pick smart money. If it doesn't feel right, don't take it, even though it feels really good to put $1 million in your bank. But it goes fast again. Back to answer your question, is what investors look, is know that no decision is ever made in a vacuum. Have good follow-up material for yourself, good call to actions. Your CFO is going to have to make a decision because the IT director wants something. You have to make a champion within the organization, whether you're selling a product to a company or whether you're selling your idea to an investor that you want to pitch. And oh, by the way, you're getting married to that investor. He's going on your board. You're going to have to send him a monthly statement. You're probably going to have to visit with his team every month. You're getting married to these people, so don't take money from people that you don't like, that you don't want to work with. If you're going to work with them, whether you like it or not. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
A little bit?
There's a couple types of pitches. So you have one that's keep your foot in the door, and there's one that really gets to the nuts and bolts.
Well,
Talk about the one that gets your foot in the door. What are you trying to do just to get their attention? There's different. It's a little different. The elevator speech. What gets their attention?
I don't know, I'm used to wireless mics. This thing is all twisted up here. All right. So typically you've got 3 to 5 seconds to make an impression. You've got 3 to 5 seconds on a website to make an impression. If you've not made that impression, they're probably going someplace else, whether you're doing the elevator pitch or not. Typically, an investor pitch is typically 12 slides, 12 to 15 slides, takes about 10 minutes. I will tell you, other than in a competition or in a conference, you'll never do that slide deck. But it's like a business plan. If you don't put the business plan together, I always laugh, send me your business plan. Nobody's ever reading your business plan. The only person that's reading your business plan is you. And you should know it inside and out. But you will reference that business plan, and that business plan will change all the time. Typically, when you go into an investment meeting, you're going to talk about, you're just going to have a conversation. You're going to have that slide deck propped up and ready to go. And when they ask the question, you go, hey, slide 6 is exactly, talks a little bit about that. And then you've got your facts and all that. But at the end of the day, you have to have different, I just actually, working with a new company, I own an IT company, and this particular company does breach attack simulation, which probably nobody ever heard of here because they came up with the term. But it does pen testing. But what they did was they gave me a 4-page document, gave me 20 words, a 20-word statement, a 50-word statement, a 100-word statement. They gave me all their features. They gave me all their benefits. Through that, I crafted out a nice email, an intro email. Gave me everything I was looking. And so depending upon who you're talking to, your audience is going to dictate what how you're going to, what you're going to present to them. I hope that kind of answered your question in a little bit. Every situation changes a little bit differently. So, yes, sir.
Can you share with us one of the more impactful or impressive pitch presentations that you've seen, and why?
Wow, well, just make me think up here. Actually, probably one of the most impactful was this gentleman, Christian Blake, that wrote this. Didn't put the greatest slide deck together, but I literally watched him at A Million Cups present. He was asked to do it. He saw about 10 minutes. Thing was, he related. People got it. At the end of the day, that's what you relate to. Yesterday, actually Jeff Danley, yesterday, well, this is the second year in a row we've had Jeff Danley come out, the head of innovation for VML. If you're not familiar with VML, they do marketing for companies like Ford, Wendy's. So they just did a thing where Fortnite, they created, this is back to do things, stay hungry, stay foolish. So Wendy's has hired them to market. They created a lady on Fortnite that went around and smashed freezers. Have you guys heard about that on Fortnite? So I guess it went viral. So now Fortnite no longer has freezers in any of the restaurants because people went around. But what was and then back to answer your question was he also showed right at the beginning was, well, probably some of the ones that during a velocity, and I'll come back to this, is during the pub pitch crawl. Invariably, you can tell who's going to win because how many people are out in the crowd crying. If you make your crowd cry, probably going to win or you've related to somebody. So yesterday, and we've had that happen numerous times on the pub pitch crawl, but yesterday, the state of Tennessee has hired VML to be their marketing. And one of the things that they did was Tennessee tries to get tourism. I think they had the 4th largest tourism budget in the nation, behind like New York City, and he rattled off the other ones. So people come to Tennessee to see the fall changes, okay? Who doesn't see it? People that are colorblind. So what they did was all those viewfinders, when you stop at those stupid turnouts, little things, they put colorblind filters in. So they literally went out and filmed colorblind people seeing the fall colors for the very first time. And it's making me have goosebumps right now. For somebody that's never seen colors in their life and were able to see it. So first of all, it'd probably make you feel good, but second of all, makes me want to go to Tennessee to go see the fall colors. I'm not colorblind, but it was just a different way of presenting. See it through a different lens, and that's a perfect one. See it through a different lens. See your product through a different lens that people can relate to. Did that answer your question? I mean,
is there a specific one there, DJ, that you can think of on the pitch pub crawl that a winner or one that maybe didn't even win that stuck in your mind as being a very impactful pitch?
well, I think the one where we're, especially in situations like this, we're all very aware of the risk we all take, financially, personally, emotionally with our spouses. Hopefully we have great spouses that support us. But Megan alluded to it today. I mean, she'd won a Chopped, and I'm going to hit your question, but this kind of falls under that risk-taking, is so she goes, wins, Chopped, she can't tell anybody, and she's in New York. She's quit her job, doesn't have any money to take Uber. Like, thank goodness I'm not in that situation because I Uber everywhere. But I could that's relatable to me. That I didn't have the money. I wouldn't have the money, and I remember those times when I didn't have the money to afford Uber. I had to figure out how to get there on the bus because I couldn't take a taxi or Uber. But there was a young lady that had that same story. She has a clothing chain or clothing website that's doing that, and she had a very similar story where they just didn't have any money, but she had taken the risk and made the decision and knew that they were going to succeed. And I'll tell you, there were a lot, not very many dry eyes in the crowd on that story, and she ended up winning at that particular that particular pub and moved on to the finals bar. That was, I think, our very first time. And we had the three winners were all women. Historically, if you're a woman, you have a very good chance of winning at the pub pitch crawl. I'm not really sure why, but I've got my reasons, but yes, there always seems to be a lot more women involved. All right, man, okay, am I expressing some wisdom or anything else? All right, Ashley and Chad, are you guys up? All right, here comes the experts. Chad, are you coming up? I thought you were coming up. You just stand up there behind the camera. Yeah. All right, great face for radio. I can't beat up on John all the time. All right, I got to hand off the mic. Thank you. Here's Ashley, the wonderful woman, here, real quick, the wonderful woman that has made us all, John and I were all volunteers. She made us look all so much better, keeps us all organized, and then also kicks us when we need to be kicked. So thank you for the kicking.
Yeah, you're welcome. Herding cats is my specialty, so thank you, DJ. So, you're going to have to bear with me. I didn't realize calling in sick was an option. I'm also very sick, so I'm going to do my best not to hack into the microphone. Yeah, right, I'm a mom, so I don't get to call in sick. So real quick, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about video. I am very much used to being behind the camera, so this is going to be hopefully not as painful for you as it is for me. But we had that innovation speech yesterday, and it did kind of affect my presentation a little bit today because I think that video is one way you can really be cutting edge and innovative. For instance, this program I used to make the slides is called Canva, and they have a ton of animations. So each slide today is going to have some animation on it, which I think is really neat and interesting, and actually goes to the point here is the attention spans. Actually, I was reading, people think that attention spans have gone down because of so much media, but they said actually the generation behind us, their attention spans are a little better because they've learned to be more selective about what they look and read at, or look at and read. But one thing that I did see throughout all of it is visual aids are really key to maintaining interest and focus. So in the 2018 study of attention spans, a third of the respondents said that they have to have visual movement in order to maintain interest. And of that same group, 87% said that they want to see more video content from brands. So that's why, maybe some of you are here today to kind of figure out, how do I incorporate video? When do I hire a pro? Can I do this on my own? Do I have to spend a fortune? So we're going to kind of talk about, where you are in your process, and that'll help determine where you need to be with your video. So the first thing that you're going to want to think about with your video production is probably to give it about a month. I think people expect it to just, turn right back around, but there's a lot of work that goes into filming the content, editing the content, and then sharing the content. So, go ahead and get started on it sooner than you think you need it. And the preparing your content part, DJ kind of went over that, Christian kind of touched on it, but basically once you do all those steps to get your pitch ready, you can turn right around and use that information for your storyboard or your script for your video. Asking yourself, who, what, when, where, why, all those things that he put out there is going to go into your story as well. Starting out with a bold statement, using quotes, all that stuff can go into your video. You really don't have to, do the work twice. And then filming your content. So this is where you can determine, your own skill set. Are you savvy enough to maybe try to do something on your own, or do you want to just hire the pros right out of the gate? What level of pro do you need? You also have the option to do some of the work yourself and then hire a specific pro. I need a lot of help with audio, or I need help with editing, but I know what content I need, and I can get that with, friends and coworkers and things. And then sharing your content. So making sure you have the best video file, testing it, making sure it's running well on all your social media platforms, in your slide deck, and on your website and everywhere else is kind of what we're going to go over today. So filming your content, this is going to kind of break out, I kind of broke it out into 3 different things. The first thing you need to know is where are you going to put your video and why do you need it? What is the ask? So is it just a quick social media thing? You want to go live? You want to tell people what you're doing? You could probably, manage that on smartphones and tablets. They're really advanced cameras these days. There's tons of editing apps and programs out there. You can even buy like a $10 ring light, slap it on your phone. You're in business. So, as far as, for rehearsal, I really recommend it as well. I did forensics in high school, and you always filmed it and go back and watch it. Where did you mess up? What could you do better? What didn't land, and take that out. In film school, the one thing we learned is, as a director, if there's a scene or something that you just love so much, take it out because you love it too much. You're too close to it. So show it to your friends, show it to your relatives. Make sure that, as passionate as you are about it, that it actually lands with everybody else, because you might be too close to it to see the mistakes in it. And then the other, probably where everybody is more landing is for your pitch deck, for your video vlog on YouTube. You need something for crowdfunding. You're trying to raise a little bit of capital. That's where you might bring in some professionals. You might do some of the work yourself to save some money, but you might also consider renting studio space, renting the nicer camera, the nicer microphone, and saving a little money. Or are you ready for your commercial? Are you doing a big ask? Are you wanting to ask investors for lots of capital? Then go ahead and consider hiring the pro. Show them that you're serious. Spend the money to make the money. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, with Chad going to come up and sort of talk about, okay, you're ready to go pro, you want the full package, what does that look like, and what do you need to prepare for? So, let's see. Okay, so if you're going to do a tech buy, I recommend these items here with Blade's help. But if you look at it, once you get to your camera, your lighting, your tripods, there are things you didn't think about. Do you have a computer that can run the editing software you need? It comes at a cost. So those things can add up. You can piecemeal things and kind of use your camera and get some lighting, and but I will tell you, as someone who does this somewhat professionally, mostly as a hobby, it is a money pit. You can spend a fortune. Not to mention, you're probably going to need at least a YouTube class, if not a paid class, to run every single one of those items, because they can get very technical. If you want to take that on, by all means, absolutely. You can find YouTube videos that have all the recommendations of different types of equipment you might want to get for your home studio. This is really good if you are planning on doing a regular YouTube vlog. I'm going to need to use this a lot. But if you're just doing it for a one-time use, you might consider hiring the pro, because cost-effective wise, unless you're going to maybe then start renting this equipment out, and that's a whole other business. So, just something to consider when kind of figuring out how much DIY you really want to do. And then we do have a Velocity video room here that Bridge Space and Velocity have put together in the back. And it's the studio space here. You can see Jamie Lyon here that we recorded, and all this equipment and everything comes with the room rental price, and then Blade back there has editing and technical services to offer that goes with it. And again, this is something where maybe you already have the script, maybe you already have the content, you have some footage that you can use to kind of back up your product or idea, but you need to get your face in front of a camera real quick to explain it. This would be a great opportunity for that. And then we're going to get to you need to go beyond that and where to go. But so if you are going to try editing, which is my specialty, here are a couple programs that I recommend. Now, some of these I kind of scaled them from, least or most user-friendly to most advanced, technically speaking. These top list here, this is desktop or, laptop programs. Lumen 5 is really user-friendly, but it does come at a monthly cost that is kind of high. So you can go as cheap as $20 a month for some of their services, but to do the full pro package, you're looking at $150 a month for that service. Hit Film Express is actually what I use, and it is free. And I have, it operates very similar to Final Cut Pro. It does not have as many features, so if you are trying to do a lot more interesting pieces, more advanced wipes or, basically, hit film is really good for talking heads, which is mostly what I do. Final Cut Pro is where you're going to get into the more advanced. There are lots of classes on it that you can take, sometimes through like Communiversity and stuff, so might not be crazy expensive, but that is sort of industry standard along with Adobe Premiere, and there's still arguments out there as far as which one is better, but it kind of depends on what what type of computer you're using. For instance, Final Cut Pro is kind of designed for Mac. Both of them have similar features. I would say Adobe Premiere has a little bit more advanced features as far as color grading and really getting technical with your layers, with text and everything else. But both of those are a little more advanced. I would recommend getting a class or some training in. I took 5 years of it at UMKC, and I was still confused. And then for apps, you can actually download these apps for free. Some of them are paid services once you've downloaded them, but these are all for editing videos really quick on the fly. Splice is really nice for starting out. However, it is, I believe, only made for iOS still, for Mac, but or for Apple products. But they have a sister app. I can't remember what it is now, but it is for Droid. And then they have Adobe Premiere Clip, which is nice because if you do the Adobe Premiere Pro at home, these two are designed to link together, but it also operates on its own. You don't have to have the desktop feature. And then WeVideo is kind of leading the cutting edge as far as storing all of the video data on the cloud. So you don't have to run it off your own computer and your own servers. They are kind of housing that data for you. See, I can't turn that ringer off. You think I could. It's the case's fault, not mine. And then formatting. So MP4 is kind of the standard format that you're going to want to go in. That is going to play across all Droid and Apple. It's going to play on cell phones and tablets, and you can pretty much upload and link that anywhere. YouTube, they do have the FLV or Flash sort of format, which maybe is a little more robust, but does sometimes have some issues with playing through different media. So I'd say leave that one for a little more advanced. If you're a little more advanced technically speaking, then that might be the format you want to use. But that is pretty much where my expertise ends. And I have Chad Godfrey here from Summit Video Services just down the street here. And he does, if you've seen any of our Velocity videos online, our promo videos, he does all those, and they're really phenomenal. So I brought him in to talk to you about the next step. You've kind of taken your skills as far as you can go. How do you determine where to go next? Where are you ready to take your project to the next level? Then Chad would be a great option. So that is mine. I hope I didn't speak too quickly, which is my problem.
Let's give Ashley a hand. Well, good morning. Thank you. My name is Chad Godfrey. I am the owner of Summit Video Services, and like Ashley, I'm also kind of the guy that's a lot of times behind the camera, not necessarily in front of the camera on stage. So for the last 15 years, I've been an entrepreneur and business owner, owning Summit Video Services, and basically have lived, eaten, and breathed creating and producing and directing videos, and that's all that I do. Prior to that, I did the same thing, just worked for different companies, got opportunities to travel all over North America, Canada, Mexico, South Pacific, producing videos. And so it's just kind of like all I've done and pretty much in my entire life, kind of starting in the 80s, back when I was shooting with these big VHS camcorders, and Betamax and VHS were sort of fighting for world domination. And that's kind of how far I go back with video. But when the question is kind of posed, why would you contact a pro, or at what point do you contact a pro? It becomes a very difficult question, and it becomes a difficult question in the last 3 or 4 years because of this, right? Okay? Because only in the last 3 or 4 years has the phone, the iPhone, the Android, whatever it's, Google Plus or Google Pixel, or Android S10, Samsung, whatever. The camera technology has become incredible on these. We can shoot in 4K. There's just all this amazing sensor technology that's here. So prior to that, my argument was always, well, we have better gear, right? We have better equipment. And while that argument is still probably still there, if you were to compare my videos on these cameras that I have up there versus if I had the same setup, on an iPhone, you'd be kind of hard-pressed to tell the difference between the two. So the beauty for you guys right now in not hiring a pro would be that you've got a lot of power right here in this camera. And I'll just say really quickly and very briefly, the industry has changed a little bit. I used to tell everybody, film this way, right? Always film landscape because you're going to view stuff on a screen like this or on a screen like that. But most of your video now is being consumed on your mobile device. So if you think about, Instagram, if you're thinking about Snapchat or Facebook, whatever, most of your videos and your media is actually being consumed on a device like this. And so you have to now think through what your content is going to be and who's going to view it, and thinking on the fact that since most of the time it's getting viewed this way, you have to at least think about shooting video at the very least in square, 1:1 aspect ratio, and to even consider doing more vertical video. So that's kind of convoluted the industry a little bit as well. But why hire a professional really comes down to a number of things. As an entrepreneur, think about what you're good at. What are the things that you are good at doing? Are you good at raising money? Are you good at your business, whatever that business might be? If you're selling widgets and that's what you do, then that's probably the thing that you would be best to focus in on, okay? So like Weed Man, for example, your son kind of runs the company now. You're not the guy that's, when they came to my yard yesterday, you weren't the guy behind the spreader, right? Or hers, right. But at one point, you were kind of that guy that was doing all of that, and now you're more focused in on the business development side of, and increasing the business, increasing client base and all of that. So I want you to think about what is your core business, and should you be doing the video yourself, or should you be hiring somebody else to do it? Would you be better off, in other words, to focus in on what you're good at and communicate that to somebody else that could help, build that brand or help build that video? So as an example, I'm capable of cooking, right? I'm capable of making Korean steak tacos, but I would much rather prefer to go to 3rd Street Social and buy those Korean steak tacos. One, because those cooks do it every day, right? And I just have to buy them and eat them, place that order and eat them. I don't have to clean up at all, right? So I don't have to buy the groceries. I don't have to prepare the menu to do that, and I don't have to clean up. So think about that with video production as well. If you have an idea and you hire a professional to create that recipe and build that meal for you, then you don't have the setup, you don't have the teardown, but you have a professional product in the end. So just because you have one of these doesn't necessarily mean that you should use it for video. Now, that being said, you can create a lot of great video with your phone, right? But it's just a matter of thinking about what your focus should be, and could you make more money or focus more in on the things that are really important in your business if you hired, and this is not just for video, this is, if you hired somebody to do your website. We don't do websites, but if you hired somebody to do your marketing for you, or your SEO, or your Google AdWords, or any of that type of management, when you're starting out in business, you're very hungry and you need to kind of be the jack of all trades and have your finger in every pot that is a part of that experience. But at a certain point, you have to let go of some of that control and stay focused on what matters the most. So that's my biggest pitch, really, to be honest with you. The obvious thing beyond just staying focused on what you're really good at is to think about some of the things that this does not provide technically. It doesn't provide really good lighting. It doesn't provide really good audio. It doesn't provide like zooming in, from a long distance or whatever. So you have to do what we call sneaker net. You have to like actually move with it to get to the part that you want to focus in on. So obviously there are some technical things that you would want to hire a professional for. But the last thing I would tell you is this. Beyond the technology, beyond the cameras, the lighting, the sound, the editing, all of that. Think about the story. DJ talked a lot about, kind of, tearing at their heartstrings right at the beginning, hit them in the feels, so to speak, right? So when you're doing a pitch, or you're doing a pitch on video, for example, or you're doing a video production to talk about your product or service, or whatever it is that is your ask, what is that story, right? And think about how you could create that story in such a compelling way that's really going to draw that viewer in. That's the number one thing that you want to do, is make sure that that viewer is captivated, and that they're captivated not at the very beginning, but all the way through. Not just at the beginning, but all the way through. So hiring a professional, whether it's me or anyone else that does video all the time, we are always and constantly thinking about story. What is that compelling story that is going to help you sell your product or sell your service or get the volunteers that you're asking for or the investors that you're asking for? So we're constantly focusing in on, and I write scripts almost every day for different companies. What is that thing that you're asking for, and how can I then communicate that visually, whether that's a drone video for the city of Lee Summit, or if it's a time lapse of something. So there are a lot of different ways to communicate that and think about that visually that you may or may not be able to do on your own. But the real reason of hiring a professional is thinking about staying focused on what's most important for you in your business, and then communicating that to somebody that can help you build your brand in a way that's going to be even bigger than what you ever thought to begin with. Any other questions about why hire a professional?
Some of it, how long does it take, like something like an event? How much time start to finish before you finally get to that last 3 minutes final one? Like, what's the time constraint?
Well, that's a really good question, because it's very situational, right? Some of the stuff that we do for Velocity, for example, we try to shoot what we call BRoll, which is like extra footage or additional footage at the very beginning. So we're getting people as they're coming in the door, and they're, maybe they're having a drink, or they're, shaking hands with somebody, and we're trying to just create that, hey, this is a fun network event, to meet new people and, that sort of thing, to filming the content of whatever, it's a presentation or if it's a, table, panel discussion type of thing, to then finishing the edit. So that could take, a few days. It could take a month to get done. I'll give an example of, we do documentaries. We did a documentary just recently for Drum Farm in Independence. They were celebrating 100 years. And it was a year-long project. I traveled to California. I traveled to Oklahoma. I traveled all over the Kansas City area, interviewing people that were residents of Drum Farm back in the day. They were still living, 40s and 50s and 60s, that were foster kids basically at that time. And so there's that part, but there's the drone footage. There's like all this cool B-roll of different stuff and kids feeding animals, and so it can be as elaborate as it needs to be, or it can be very simple, which is just maybe throw a slate up that has a quick title. This is what it is you're going to watch, and here's DJ walking all the way across the stage, left, right, and Chad's doing this the entire time. Just kidding you. John did it too. It's fine. So I mean, Ashley's not incorrect in saying most videos you want to consider about a month, to at least from the planning stages of it to, final delivery, whether it's Facebook or YouTube or, whatever that might be. Yeah. But it's incredibly situational. Really depends on the complexity of, what's being asked to be created. Yeah. Yeah.
Just real quick, price point. Do you price by project, by the hour? Do you offer free consult? Can you give a bid after a consult?
Sure. Yes. So as far as the question, did everybody hear the question? Yeah. So basically, she was wanting to know like price points and whether I offer free bids and what was the last part of it?
By the hour.
Oh yeah. So is it hourly? Is it per project? So for us, everything is very situational. Like I've never done 2 videos that are the same. Right? So I always have to get an idea of what it is that you're trying to do, and then I create a bid based on, what I think that project, would be. So, but yes, I always do free consultations on that, so it's not something that you would pay for, or we're in kind of a discovery process of figuring out what it is that you're wanting to do. I'll give you a quick example on pricing. So like, we do a lot of 30-second and 45 and 60-second commercial spots, broadcast as well as, strictly for the web or YouTube or social media. Those usually run the range of like $1,500 to $2,500. Sometimes they're less, sometimes they're more. But I've never had a cookie cutter project where, I turn around and do another one that's exactly the same. It may take less time, it may take more time. So it's hard to know, but that's typically a range on say a 30-second project, or a 30-second video. Yeah, yeah. And part of that too is, one is hiring the professional. Two, it's, we're bringing in lots of lighting, sound, could be $20,000 worth of equipment, so that's sort of like rental on that equipment at the same time. So, yeah, yeah, it's a great question. Any other questions? You guys have been great. Thank you.